Good evening, distinguished members of ISD 318. Thank you for having Meeting Metallics here to present what I think you'll see is somewhat of a dynamic project that's going on right here in the county of Itasca that we feel is going to be a huge benefit to the tax base here, the county itself, schools, townships, cities. So you'll hear a little bit about that as we present the project. So I'm Larry Sutherland, President and Chief Operating Officer of Meeting Metallics. Give you a brief history. I've got 49 years between steel and pellets. I retired from U.S. Steel a few years ago. Ended up coming to the Mesabi project. Over half of my career, I was a union millwright. I actually worked at the former Butler Taconite facility, which ran from 67 to 85. If any of you remember, that plant sat between Pengilly and Nashwauk on the north side of the road there. I was a union millwright there from 75 to 85. So I've always had a place in my heart for what we call the Butler corridor, is where that ore body lies, and I'll explain that on some maps. But I would like to introduce Barb Palmy. She's part of the Build Mesabi, Build Itasca Community Advocacy Group, and Greg Lindahl from Hazel's. Sorry, so many Gregs. Barb was on the Nashwauk School Board. Greg's on the Nashwauk City Council. So they help us with Build Mesabi, Build Itasca. So I guess if it's okay, I'll move over here to see the screen and explain a little bit about our project. So here's the Mesabi Iron Range. It's about 110 miles long from up towards the North Shore Lake Superior all the way to the Grand Rapids area. You see the mining companies and taconite facilities sprinkled across that large geological formation of iron ore, which is one of the largest in North America, the largest in the U.S. Mesabi Metallics sits again in what we call the Butler corridor on the west end of the Mesabi Iron Range. So that ore body there has left in it because Butler Taconite operated from 67 to 85. That was about a 2.5 million ton a year finished product pelletizing facility. So they only took about 40 million tons of ore out of that Butler corridor. There's almost 2 billion with the B tons of ore in the Butler corridor. So a facility our size takes about 23 million tons of crude oil to make 7 million tons of finished pellets. Call it 25 million for easy math. That's 80 years of ore for one facility, or 40 years of ore for two facilities, because there is another company that has mineral leases there as well, but there's plenty of ore in the Butler corridor. This is just showing the infrastructure, and this project has been ongoing for 14, 15 years, and there's some history there, and I'll talk a little bit about that going forward. But the large power infrastructure is all there. We'll utilize about 160 megawatts of generate electricity just for the pelletizing plant. That's not the Green Steel Initiative. I'll talk a little bit about what we plan on doing at our facility there in Nashwauk area. All the water infrastructure, nat gas, all the main infrastructure is in, because as you know, across Iron Range, that infrastructure that feeds a lot of the other taconite plants is pretty robust infrastructure with electrical service and water, nat gas. Here's a map. I'd like to point out this yellow oval here. That's our, we are permitted. In fact, that we're permitted not only for 7 million tons a year of pellets, we're permitted through steel production right here in Itasca County. A lot of politicians, not only from the range but across the state, helped to permit this facility. The late former Senator Thomas Oney helped permit this facility. Former Senator Bach helped permit this, along with several others that worked on the permitting of this facility all the way through steel, because that was their vision, to see a company here on the range in the Butler corridor beneficiate not only taconite, but go all the way through liquid steel and steel production. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So we lost the blue leases, or state mineral leases. We're currently doing a permit to mine amendment. Although we were permitted, we lost those leases, and we're picking up some of our own control leases down in this area, so it requires an amendment. It's not what we consider a major amendment. We feel it's a minor amendment, so we're working with the agencies on that permitting. There's just some pictures of some of the facilities here. This is the ore storage facilities, crusher, primary and secondary crusher buildings, and a grizzly building. And we continue to construct there, and we plan a ramp up of construction during this construction season. And what'll guide the intensity and focus of that ramp up is working with the agencies to ascertain how long that permit will take to complete. If it's going to be a lot shorter permit completion, like we think it should be, that ramp up will be steeper and faster. If it's going to take more time than we're expecting, that ramp up will be a little bit less steep and softer, because we'll align our construction spend to finish the pelletizing facility with that ramp up. So we have, I think another slide shows us, we have $1.7 billion already invested in this facility, with about another $800 million to go. At about $2.5 billion, that's the largest capital project, they tell me, in the history of Minnesota. It sits right here in Itasca County. $2.5 billion just for the pelletizer. That's not talking the steel end of it. I want to point out here our air pollution control system that's still being worked on, but it's pretty much state of the art. I think the agencies would tell you that once operational, this is one of the cleanest taconite facilities on the range, because of our environmental controls and the technology we're putting into this new facility. And we haven't had a new taconite facility of this magnitude on the Iron Range for 50, 60 years. Just some more of the construction. You'll see from July 23 on the left to more recently, February 24, you see the build out of that structure. That's our large concentrator building, which is the majority of the work is going on right there in the concentrator. That's what we call the critical path building. The majority of the electricity and dollars expended to produce a pellet happens in that concentrated building. You'll see even more recent pictures how we're closing it in now. Once closed in, we can start setting more of the equipment. Some of it's already set inside, but it's easier to do there's literally miles of piping and electrical infrastructure in that building. Just an example of, since April of 23, we put in 2,000 cubic yards of concrete, 4,500 metric tons of structural steel, 65,000 square feet of sheeting. These are all union trade jobs that are doing. We're a union facility, and we have a new project labor agreement with the trade unions of our region, and they're the ones doing this work. along with local contractors, Northern Industrial Erectors from the Rapids area, who's doing all the steel and structural work, Hammerland TNT, doing the civil and concrete work. So again, this is just depicting the age of the other taconite facilities. The newest one there would be the Minorca mine, which is now a Cleveland Cliffs facility. It used to be Inland Steel. It was 1977. So again, we're the first, most recent, about 50, 60 years of taconite facilities. Some of them are older than the Minorca plant. So our investors, of course, are committed to this large capacity greenfield taconite pelletization project. For 130 years, basically, our not only natural ore mines from years ago and some of the steel production that actually fought 2 world wars for this country, that ore came from the Iron Range. And for 130 years, we've been sending our ore to blast furnaces all across North America, and some of it globally. I'll talk a little bit more about that and what it means to us to go to green steel and have that produced right here in Itasca County. It's just some of the community advocacy we're doing with different cities and groups that we've been very active as we've been ramping up here and donating money to community projects that they just haven't had the tax base or tax dollars to invest in some of these projects. But from 2020 to 2023, we've actually spent $69.35 million via mineral royalties. Even though we're not mining, you pay minimums just to maintain those royalties. Itasca County property taxes, Itasca deed payments, $69.35 million. So you see the impact, and that's not even operational yet. When we become operational, it's going to be in excess of, we estimate, of $40 million a year to the state and local communities and taxation districts. Not sure what happened to this slide. The start of the green steel slide, it didn't show up. This was depicting, again, we've spent that 1.6 billion with another 1.6 to 7 billion with another 800 to go on the taconite facility. And what that meant for jobs, but all the way through green steel production, we go to the hot briquetted iron plant, which is a plant that'll take the high grade, DR grade, low silica pellets and turn it into hot briquetted iron, just small ingots of iron that gets fed into an electric arc furnace, liquid steel into a caster, and you have hot roll coil right here on the Iron Range for the first time in history. Like I said, for 130 years, we've been sending it to Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, and all over to produce that steel. And I've managed the entire value chain from raw materials through finished steel. And I've always felt that that value belongs here on the Iron Range. Let's benefit where the geological formation lies, and we own that. Let's benefit the people of Minnesota, Itasca County, particularly here with that mine being in Nashua with steel production. People ask me, well, what does green steel mean? What does it mean to decarbonize the steel industry? So on the left side of the presentation, there's a traditional blast furnace production to produce steel using coking coal as the inductant to fire and melt the pellets. Through that process, using that coking coal and everything that goes on there, you produce, it's over two tons of carbon per ton of liquid steel. See, it's hard to believe that you produce that much carbon, but it's over 2 tons of carbon per ton of liquid steel. On the right side, excuse me, with the Green Steel Initiative, we plan using the hot briquetted iron facility and using hydrogen in that facility versus nat gas, green hydrogen, into electric arc furnace liquid steel hot roll coil. It's about 0.3 of a ton of carbon, 0.3 versus over 2 tons of carbon per ton of liquid steel. That's what green steel means. We want to do that in Minnesota because we have the opportunity here on the Iron Range, being already permitted, to be the first facility, and Minnesota can be at the cutting edge of the Green Steel Initiative here, not only domestically in the US, but globally, where the environmentalists, and rightfully so, are seeking the decarbonization of the steel industry. And that's why. It's because of the old traditional process versus the technology we now have to produce green steel and decarbonize the steel industry. We have the opportunity because the federal government has passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which should qualify us, and we're in discussions with the DOE and different parties about our project. In fact, there's visits scheduled that they're coming up to look at our project and determine our eligibility for these green, clean steel tax credits to provide that hydrogen and clean energy right here in Itasca County, which will be more jobs yet if we put up a large hydrogen plant that would utilize about 600 megawatts of electrolyzers to drive the carbon off of hydrogen to use as inducted in the hot briquetted iron process. So we're going to have those visits and try to take advantage of the IRA credits, which some of that was enacted and legislated to help with decarbonizing the steel industry. And we want to do that right here in Minnesota, not Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, Toledo. We want to benefit the people with this project permitted for this very reason. And I would suggest it'd be pretty hard to ever re-permit a facility like this in Minnesota the way the environmental laws and everything is. That's why we want to take advantage of existing permits that legislators worked hard to secure and help permit that facility to go all the way through that green steel production. Having managed the large steel facilities for U.S. Steel, from the former Stelco operations in Canada to United States Steel POSCO, California, Gary Works, Gary, Indiana. I can tell you, when you put up a facility producing hot roll coil, soon there's stamping plants that are being built to stamp appliance sheet or automotive sheet or tin packaging products, all kinds of steel products that the industry uses. They go where the source is of that produced steel. So the 2,000 expected jobs just from us going through hot roll coil would exasperate many times over that into these type of facilities right here on the Iron Range. Now there's issues we have to talk about housing. There's all kinds of, you people know this better than I do, on the strain that industry puts on schools and taxing districts, but sometimes it's a good problem to have versus not having that tax revenue. So again, the only steel project in Minnesota with available permits, first integrated green steel mill What we're going to do to complete the pellet plant, we have some of our own ores. We're going to complete that pelletizer, and we have some daylight on other ores to have a 30-40 year run and produce that green steel right here in Minnesota. SR has the technical knowledge of doing this. They know how to do the hydrogen production facilities, etc. People ask me what's different about this project as we sit here today versus the struggles it's seen. I mean, it went through a bankruptcy back in that 2015-16 time frame. And I probably don't have to remind too many of you that the history of the domestic steel industry and the bankruptcies that have happened across the Iron Range. In fact, the only original company left, if I go back 30, 35 years ago, we used to call it the Big Seven. There was 7 steel companies that owned the taconite facilities across the range. The only one of the originals that are left is U.S. Steel. I went through bankruptcies at a couple facilities I've been at. I mean, so some of the steel companies that I mentioned either went bankrupt and went away or sold their operations and consolidated before they went bankrupt and no longer exist. I mean, you're talking National Steel, Wheeling, Pittsburgh, Armco, Republic, Bethlehem Steel, Inland. I'm probably forgetting 1 or 2 there, but you've all heard those names. They used to own taconite facilities on. So we're not the first company that ever, unfortunately, went through a bankruptcy. But we're here to move forward. The SR is basically now debt-free. They paid down about $26 billion in debt, and this project in Nashwauk is their #1 agenda to get into that green steel initiative, and they're investing the money. It's real. And I know Pat has been out. Invite any of you if you want to come out, get a hold of us, and we'll tour you and show you the work going on, show you the activity, and explain more about the project. It's very interesting to see that large facility being constructed. That's basically what I have this evening. Any questions I can entertain? Or?
Mr. Chair, Larry, as a school district, I see benefit here. Potential families moving in, more students across the school districts across the Iron Range. And, my question to you is what can we do to help you in this process? I heard you say you're applying for reissuing of a permit. Is there a letter of support? Is there some call our legislators? What is it that we might be able to help you with?
Well, I think as we get more guidance, working closely with the agencies.
Do you want to go back on there?
What's that?
And bring it back up if you like.
No, I'm
Okay.
fine. I think there will be asks from, Ben DiNucci's the head of our government affairs, public relations. We were down at the Capitol last Wednesday. You might have seen on the news. We did a visit there with Bill Musabi, Bill Itasca. Visited with many interested senators and representatives down at the Capitol and bringing them up to speed about our project, and they asked a lot of good questions. I think going forward, as we get more guidance of how the permitting process is going and what we may need to build out the green steel sector with the DOE and all the activities that go in there, I'm sure there's going to be some asks forthcoming. Ben, you got any comments you'd like to include in that for now? Or?
Chair, board members. Yeah, I think Larry's spot on. At the appropriate time here, in the not too distant future, we would really appreciate an opportunity to come before the board again and ask for a letter of support. We can work with you and staff as to what that sort of looks at and develop that in the meantime.
And I really do welcome school boards to come and visit the facility and let us educate and show you a little more of what's going on there, because it might help you with some of those decisions on letters of support. Because it is very dynamic, the dollars we're spending there right now with NIE and Hammerlin moving forward. And as we look at this ramp up into this construction season, fortunately, we had a pretty easy winter. We had a lot of people on site through the winter continuing. As you can see, the project process and progress in some of the pictures there.
Mr. Chair. Larry, thank you. This is extremely informative. What's the, I heard you say a number of times that the project is permitted.
Yes.
What's standing between where we are today and roll steel?
So, Mr. Marty, as I said, because we lost some of the leases within our existing permit to mine area, we have to seek permission from the agencies, which is a permit amendment, to get after our own ore that's on the outside of that yellow oval I shown. So it requires an amendment to do that.
And that's a DNR amendment?
And MPCA, yes. So it's air, water, minerals, the land. But that's what we're working through and trying to get that guidance on that timeline of how long that will take, because that'll guide our construction spend and our head count ramp up of how quick we need to do that construction.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just as an FYI to the board, RAMS is in the process of doing a letter of support for the Solomon Teller project. And on May 23rd, a RAMS board meeting will be held in Nashwauk at the Nashwauk City Hall. And the RAMS board will be taking a tour of the facility at that point in time. And I would just make an invite to any other school board members that might be interested in coming over and being part of that tour.
Thank you for that.
Any other discussion or questions? Thanks very much for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us and listening, and I look forward to the future of working with all of you and bringing that tax revenue to your tables, where I know you are making a lot of hard decisions. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we're going to adjourn the workshop session. There will be time after the regular meeting if anybody has public input. So we're adjourned, and we'll come back in the session here in a couple minutes. Call the board meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a reminder that Superintendent Gross is joining us remotely tonight. At this point, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Pat, second by David. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda, Robert J. Elkington Middle School Science Fair participants. Have we heard from Lori?
Yeah, they're not here yet, so maybe,
We can come back to that.
yeah, the regular meeting initially was gonna start at 6:30, so that could be why they're not here yet.
Next item on the agenda is the principal's report. Bruce Goodwin.
Is the clicker still there, Bruce?
I don't see the clicker, no.
Oh, I have it here, I'm sorry.
All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? All right. School board, thank you so much for the opportunity for us to present this rainy spring, cloudy day on our eclipse that we were hoping to see today. Didn't quite happen, but we were ready for it. So thank you so much. Clayton and I are here to report on East Rapids, and just to kind of a quick review going into the school year is our building goals. And this year, as in every year, we set goals going in and we work throughout the year to see if we can achieve those goals and build off of those. And this year we wanted to spend a lot of work on data literacy, and working with our teachers to increase our scores in reading and math by 6%. And we put those goals on paper, worked together in our leadership team, and then we worked hard to keep circling back to these goals as the year progressed. Anything else?
Yeah, so if you look at the bullets underneath, the main bullets there, we just took our recent March screener assessment with our STAR assessment. And on the STAR assessment, it has the ability to predict how our students are going to do on the MCAs here starting next week. Next week we start reading MCAs and then the math after that. And the March STAR screener assessment, we just today, we pulled all the data, looked at our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students on the STAR reading. And right now we're trending to have 66% of our students reading at proficiency on the MCA assessment. And we were at 60% last year on MCA, and our goal was to grow by 6%, and we're currently right on track to get that 66% here next week on the MCA. And also on the math, on the bullet below that second one there, we also did the same thing with our math on the MCA, on the STAR assessment. And our students are currently trending to have 70% of our students proficient in math, and we were at 61% last year at MCA. So we're showing some good growth on our screeners, and we're hoping that on MCA in the next few weeks, we see that same growth when we finish with our students. So we're currently trending to meet those goals, and we're excited about that.
So our focus going into the year, first and foremost, building relationships. And I've stated before, and will continue to state that we can't build a house from the top down. You gotta go from the bottom up. And that foundation is the relationships that we build, foster, maintain, and work on. We worked on our early out cycle, shared leadership concepts. We have some new legislation that we are embracing and learning. Reducing our ODRs, supporting all students and family engagement. So these are our focus areas going into the year, continuation from years past, but these are the things that we really worked to get better at.
And here's how we did that this year. So we'll start with student support. Some of the things we had in place for our student support this year was our DART team, and that's our data action review team. And that team gets together every Wednesday at East. And we look at the data from our screeners, and teachers can also refer students to that team. And we look at how we best can support students with either tier 2 interventions in the building, or we look at, do we need, those students need additional intervention, and that may or may not lead them to a child study with a special ed possibility. But that team really sits down and looks hard at the data, and it's a highly efficient and effective team at East. And we have them at all our schools. We're doing that district-wide, which is great. Second is our SABRS, and that's our SABRS screener is social emotional. And our students in second grade, the teacher does a SABRS, and that's essentially a screener where they go through and kind of rate how they see the student doing social emotionally. And then third, I believe all the way through 8th, if you correct me, at the middle school, but the students also take that screener, and they report how they're feeling. And we do that 3 times a year in the fall, winter, and spring. And we use that data. We use our student sports specialist at East, and she uses that data to pull groups of students who may be struggling in certain areas, and she has groups tied to that. So we're using the data from our SABRS to drive some of our tier 2 interventions with our student sports specialists. ODRs is office disciplinary referrals, and we look at those on our PBIS team. So we look at our ODRs, we look at what trends are happening there. We look at if students are, what time of day when we're giving referrals, location, different types of incidents, and we use that data to drive our decision-making, what's best in our building to support students who may be struggling in getting office referrals. And then, of course, PBIS is a wraparound around all of that, and that's what we use our framework to support students with our school-wide rules and expectations. And our early warning system is driven through EduClimber, which is our data warehouse, and it pulls all the information from FastBridge, STAR, Campus, and it puts it all into one nice package for us in EduClimber, and it creates an early warning system, and it sends us an email almost sometimes every day, at least once a week, where students may be flagging who need support. So that's some of our student support parts that are helping support our students. Our family engagement, we have family nights at East, which are great. A lot of times we tie those closely to our Anishinaabe program, which Bruce is the director of. And we also have our celebrations around our quarterly celebrations, PBIS. We celebrate students who are doing great things. We have our Thunderhawks that we at East on our announcements read daily. And we have Super Hawks that kids can earn weekly. Those are above and beyond. We're doing a really great job. Our early out cycle has been explicit and deliberate this year, district-wide. And that's been great because every school is doing the same thing on Wednesdays during our early out. And that's all driven by data with our EduClimber, STAR, FastBridge, SABRS. So we're able to, in our early out cycle, reflects the work we're doing on that. I think you've seen that presented before, but that's been really strong work we've been doing. And then lastly, our crisis management. We've been working district-wide on our crisis management teams to shore up and make sure that we are safe, first of all, in our schools, and then how we can handle a crisis if it were to come up. All of our principals, and I believe a lot of our counselors have been trained this year, what's called CSTAG, and that's like a threat assessment tool that we all have been trained in. So that's some of the work we're doing around the crisis management this year.
Just want to add a little bit on the early out cycles 1 and 2. The work that Ryan DeBay and the rest of the team at the district level to lay out our early outs in a way that marries our goals with the strategic plans. It's been great work, and it's been a real heavy lift for everybody involved, but it's really focused this each week with a clear idea of a direction that we're going. And we haven't had that before to the detail we have now, and it's been good. It's been good work, and we're excited to see the fruits of that labor as the years progress following that model. So we're coming to the end, and right now we're entering our MCA testing season. Next week we'll start reading. After that is math, and one of our goals is 6% growth in our MCA scores, and we're taking it serious. We're gonna lift that log together as a school. Our non-testing classrooms and teachers are gonna work along with our testing classrooms to really pump the tires with our students, to show off what they've learned, the hard work that they've done, and the hard work the teachers have done to support those kids. So we're really excited this year to see where we can go with our MCA testing. It's gonna be fun. I sent out a message to parents this morning to kind of, really get them involved in helping us shine on these tests. So that'll be, that's ongoing. It's gonna be really cool to see. This year in East Rapids, our teachers met in the fall, they met winter, and we'll be meeting in May to go over data individually and then as grade level groups to kind of spark really good conversation about what's happening in individual classrooms, what things are happening that we're seeing success, and promote conversation, professional conversations around teacher data. And then our grade level schools planning, a lot of work. We've gone through a lot of change here lately, and there's a lot of work that we need to be doing to get ready for that. So we're aggressively meeting. Tomorrow we have another transition team meeting, and there's some good conversations coming out of that, and a plan for that transition is coming together, and it's looking really good. And then finally, PBIS, or positive behavior in schools. It's just the fun part of our day. It's finding kids working hard, celebrating the success that they're doing, the achievements, catching them, making good choices, and working through issues when mistakes happen. And it's just been a real fun part of the job. And finally, this is the team, and couldn't be more proud of those folks in that picture, and the support you guys have given to East Rapids Elementary School. Can't say thank you enough. And I wouldn't be able to end a presentation without a student joke, so I know you've been waiting for that, so here we go. Third grade student, Carter Storing, comes to me one day, says, "Mr. Goodwin, did you know that 10 plus 10 and 11 plus 11 are the same?" I said, "No, Carter, I didn't know that." He's like, "It's true. 10 plus 10 is 20, and 11 plus 11 is 22. So that concludes East Rapids presentation tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Bruce or Clayton, you're talking about MCAs, and we're in that testing process next week. You shared some projections with us. When will the final results be out? I think it's important that we share that with the community, because we talked about the projections and how are we comparing to what the projections are in relation to what's really actually happening without this long lag time, if you will. Does that make sense in what I'm asking?
I can maybe speak for that. So as soon as our students finish the MCA, the teacher can get immediate embargo data. And our teachers are all at all elementaries and the middle school are setting goals with their students, individual goals, looking at their last year's score on MCA, and they're going to look at how they did on this year's MCA. Now those scores are embargoed only for teachers to see right away. I don't believe until September that it's like out into the community that after it's embargoed and they go through the whole state. So we won't be able to share with the community until the state allows us to, once they go through everything, and that's usually not until later in the summer.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to put it out there.
That's a great question, but the important thing is our students they find out right away how they did and celebrate that. So
Just to follow up to that, but some of those projections that you were doing are based on other data, not the MCA's, right?
that's right.
So those will come out quicker?
So the projections are based off our STAR assessment test that the teachers do. And that STAR test, although not exactly like the MCA, correlate very, very closely. So our projections come off of that test.
Pearson is the company that has STAR, and they're also the company that does the MCA. So there's a real direct correlation of how they do on STAR to how they do on MCA.
Thank you.
Melissa?
You talked a lot about savers, right? Savers, social. Does that help kind of identify like mental health issues and wellness issues that show up in, because I know that was a big concern for a lot of parents as we headed in, was mental health with the young students, all the way to high school. But does savers help with that, or is that not one of the flags that would put?
It helps greatly in that there's actually two different assessments that are done. The students will do their own,
Yeah.
and the teachers will do theirs. And when we're going through, and he mentioned the early warning system, our early warning system will generate a list to us on a regular basis that students that are flagging themselves low or at high risk in social emotional. And teachers also will flag students high risk. There might be some differentiation there, but it's important for, it's a great baseline test to get us to see if their students were missing. And then but the most important piece, the social emotional support, is the staff communicating with each other and making sure, our teaching staff who are with the kids every single day are picking up on things, or communicating that with our DART team.
Yep.
And just making sure that we're looking at everything to make sure that we're meeting their needs.
And to go a little deeper on that, the STAR does give us some generalized categories, right? So how the student feels about themselves, how they feel about their peers, how they feel. It comes like big buckets that we get information from. When the student support specialist meets the student, they kind of dig deeper into that, right? But that screener, as we call a screener, gives us a real general kind of pots of how they're feeling. It does do that, but I wouldn't say it goes really in depth until they meet with their tier 2 with our student support specialists.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
So Brewster Clayton, one of the things I heard mentioned is different tier level interventions. Could you just kind of clarify for everybody a little bit what those tiers are?
You bet. So you think of it as like if this was a classroom and we're all in here together learning the same concept, that's tier 1, this big group. Now, some students will need a little extra help. And that help is broken out and identified in different ways, but we'll have intervention teachers support the tier 2 students that need a little extra help. They're on the bubble or they're not getting concepts at the speed that the tier 1, the whole group is getting. And then tier 3 is for our really at-risk students who need intense extra support. And that can be behavioral, that can be academic. It just depends. But our screeners, our assessments, our ODR data all work together to identify what tier students live in. And students will bounce between tiers, or it depends on what concepts there are or what we're learning, but it's a kind of a fluid movement through the tiers. I hope that made a little sense.
One thing I said is too, at the tier 2 this year, we have tier 2 interventions for academics, which include our title teachers, right? We have the ADSYS brand now, so we have ADSYS teachers. We also have AmeriCorps who are in the schools for our tier 2 reading instruction. And we have ADSYS math, tier 2 math in both East and West, required math intervention. And this year, we're also able to find time for our ADSYS paras, ESPs, to do some behavior also. So our student support specialist does tier 2 interventions, but then we also have ADSYS paras who also provide some tier 2 intervention for behavior. So we're hitting all those areas, and it's really great support for the students. But that tier one is by far the most important tier, right? That our general ed teacher, our classroom teacher in front of the kids, that's our tier one. That's where we get the most growth, typically bang for our buck. We want all of our students, whether they're in special ed, getting tier two intervention, they all get core from their teacher. So they all get core reading, they all get core math, that tier one teaching, and then they get additional help in that tier two from student support specialists, ADSIS, title, they get that tier two support. And of course, our special ed program helps those tier three students, our IEPs.
And to help with all this, or to facilitate all of this, is our DART team, our Data Action Review and Response team. Everything comes to that team. That team meets, dissects the data, deep dive into students, taking everything that we can, and then really honing in on what extra help a student needs.
And with that, students aren't just placed into tier two interventions haphazardly. This team, our title team, we take a full day and we really dive into that screener data, both in the fall, winter, and the spring data we'll use for next fall too, and really place students in the greatest help they can receive. So students who need a real deep dive into tier two reading intervention, go to our title teachers who are certified teachers first. And then next level student may go to a ADSIS ESP. And then the kids who are kind of like we call bubble kids, right? On the bubble of going into that proficient reading, they see some of our AmeriCorps people.
Any other questions or discussions?
Sure. Just a note, Bruce and Clayton, a note of appreciation and acknowledgement to you and to all the staff. It's encouraging and exciting to see the data that's already on the table and to anticipate some positive results coming forth in the MCAs. And that's the work of your people. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Barkowitz, are you ready?
Nope,
No?
you're waiting for one more person.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, grade level building transition update, Superintendent Gross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just three quick things for you tonight. We continue to get and respond to feedback. We held our first Facebook Live last week. Had quite a few people joining on it live, and we know that and posted the link there on our website so people can check that out and give some feedback there. The website is up that I just referred to. Again, it's a great place for people to get information. We continue to hear appreciation for that. And as was mentioned by Bruce, we had our first transition committee meeting last week. Talked primarily about logistics, moving, how we get teachers from one building to another, et cetera. We'll go over some problem solving we did around those issues tomorrow with the group, and still discussing what the end of the year calendar's looking like at this point. So that's the update on that.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the March 27, 24 regular school board meeting.
So moved, David.
Moved by David,
Second.
second by Pat. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is to approve the March 2024 claims in the amount of $6,053,911.23.
So moved.
Moved by Ben,
Second.
second by Melissa. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Claims are approved. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Casey.
Good evening, board. Tonight we have Mario Mahoney, Big Fork head golf coach replacement hire. Linda Mortensen, accountant retirement. Linda has served in the district for 9 years. Kyle Ray, routing specialist resignation. Carrie Riley, human resource assistant, transfer replacement hire. And Daniel Stark, assistant boys lacrosse coach replacement hire. I'm recommending approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Pat,
Second.
second by Mindy. Reminder, there's no discussion on the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda, to approve the resolution placing Madeline Melton on partial unrequested leave of absence. Casey.
Before you, you have a resolution that will place one teacher and appoint 2 FTE partial unrequested leave of absence. This process is consistent with Minnesota Statute 122A40, subdivision 10, which talks about the ULA process. On March 11th, the board adopted a resolution proposing placement on the partial ULA. There was terms that there was a 14-day period the employee could request a hearing. And because that did not happen, I'm recommending that we move forward with placing Madeline Melton on a .2 unrequested leave of absence.
So I'm looking for a motion.
So moved, David.
Moved by David.
Second.
Second by Ben. Clerk Marty, would you read the resolution aloud?
Whereas the School Board of Independent School District number 318 adopted a resolution proposing placement of Madeline Melton on partial .2 FTE unrequested leave of absence on March 11th, 2024 on the grounds of lack of pupils and financial limitations. And whereas said written notice of the proposed placement on partial .2 FTE unrequested leave was received by Madeline Melton on March 18th, 2024. And whereas said written notice of the proposed placement on partial .2 FTE unrequested leave contained a statement setting forth the reasons for the proposed placement, as well as a statement that she was entitled to a hearing before the school board, provided that she make a request in writing within 14 days of receipt of said notice, and that no hearing was requested within said 14-day period. It constituted acquiescence by Madeline Melton to the school board's proposed action. And whereas no written request of any kind was received by the school board of the superintendent of schools from Madeline Melton for a hearing as of April 1st, 2024. And whereas said failure to make written requests for a hearing within 14 days to her placement on partial .2 FTE unrequested leave constituted acquiescence by Madeline Melton to the school board's proposed action. Therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 318 that Madeline Melton be and hereby is placed on partial .2 FTE unrequested leave of absence as a teacher of Independent School District 318 on the grounds of lack of pupils and financial limitations, effective at the end of the 2023-2024 school year on May 31st, 2024, pursuant to Minnesota Statutes Section 122A.40, Subdivision 10, without pay or fringe benefits. Be it further resolved that a notice of placement on partial .2 FTE unrequested leave, together with a copy of this resolution, be forwarded to said teacher by certified mail or personally, and that a copy be placed in her file.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Julie, can we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Mindy Nuring,
Yes.
Melissa Barr,
Yes.
David Marty,
Yes.
Ben Hawkins,
Yes.
Pat Maduri,
Yes.
and Mark Schroeder.
Yes. Resolution is approved. Lori, are we still waiting on people?
One more.
One more. Next item on the agenda, approve the final fiscal year 24 budget. Sarah?
Good evening. You have a summary in front of you of the changes in the budget from the beginning of the year, prior to the beginning of the year, to now. And the good news is, you can look at the bottom line for all of our funds. We will do better than projected back in May. There's a lot of things that we know now that we didn't know when we approved this budget, in June, excuse me. And the majority of that has to do with the contracts that were settled after the original budget was approved and the insurance plan that was approved by the Fringe Benefit Committee. We didn't know what those would be in June. So the budget was based on a conservative estimate that we might not, that we would be paying out more than we have for this year. So I don't know if you guys have any specific questions about why things changed, but the majority of the changes in the budget are due to salaries. When I put together estimated salary schedules, I planning for, not worst case, but we pay out more than we did. And with our insurance change, we did have staff that dropped our insurance plan, so that is less contribution the district has to make, less expense for the district. So in addition, we've been kind of understaffed in a couple areas such as ESPs, so that hasn't helped. We also found out we bought curriculum this year, which we thought would be $250,000. The majority of the curriculum is software, and it is over, it's amortized over 8 to 10 years, depending on the curriculum. So we spread that expense out, which is really nice. Our software costs are up because of that. In the revenue side, we had no idea what that cross-subsidy number was going to be, and Anna's presenting to you next week a special ed report, and that number is a lot higher than we estimated. So that is fantastic. Because that number is up, because our expenses are down, I was able to delay drawing on some COVID funds until next year, so I'll roll that into next year's budget. It doesn't matter when we draw it, just as long as we get the cash, and we will definitely get the remaining cash that we have sitting out there. Other than the general fund, the one major change was with food service. The revenues went from 2 million and 2 million to 2.7 million in revenues, 2.7 million in expenses. And the reason for that also has to do with, we didn't know how much the reimbursement rates were going to be from the state. This is the first year that the state has funded the free meals. And they funded them at a much higher level than we were charging parents. Parents have paid for paid full price. So for instance, last year breakfast cost a parent $1.95 in elementary and $2.30 in high school. This year, the state's reimbursing us at $2.73 across the board. For lunches, we charged $2.55 for elementary kids and $2.85 for high school kids. The state and federal government are reimbursing us for a total of $4.46, almost, I don't want to say double, but it's a lot more than we were getting last year. So this is good, but it's our state money, and if it could have been funneled to the general fund, that would have been fantastic. But it's not. Kids are eating for free. That's fantastic. So do you have any comments on the remainder of the budgets?
Mr. Chair, Carrie, in regards to the food service side, I know there's been discussions at the state, and they're doing this 2-year bit. What's going to happen in the future? Has anybody heard anything from the state on where we're at?
I haven't heard that there would be a change right now, so I don't know.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion to approve the FY24 budget.
So moved.
Moved by Pat,
Second.
second by Mindy. Any other discussion?
Just appreciate your work, Carrie.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The FY24 budget is approved. Lori, give me a wave when you're ready. You ready?
We can go, yeah, they're not here.
Come on up.
Good evening, I'm Lori Kabarkowitz, I'm a sixth grade teacher at Robert J. Elkington, as well as the science fair geek, guru, coordinator, enthusiast. Thank you so much for letting us come in and recognizing our kids' achievements. I'm just giving you a little bit of history on the projects. Science fair is done completely outside the classroom, so the kids take on their research and investigation of something of their choice and work on it starting from September till the regional competition in February. We did have a local competition at our middle school. That was a huge success, wonderful, lots of great projects, lots of great research. The funds came from an endowment grant, so I'm so thankful to be able to continue getting their support to hold our local fair. And then we took 32 kids over to Bemidji State University on February 24th to compete at the regional science fair. I cannot say enough about how blessed I am to work with these amazing kids. They took first and third place at the middle school competition. They took first place at the high school competition and won numerous other awards. We had 9 students qualify for the state competition. Unfortunately, with budget constraints, only 3 were able to go down and compete. I'm working on fundraising for next year because I can't do that and I have to get them there. So I will work on fundraising and looking for more grants to support that. At the state competition, we had Calvin Rutherford place. He was at theater practice tonight, so he couldn't attend. He did very well and received an award of excellence for the region. And then we had Katie Mousel, another 6th grade student. She went down and competed. She unexpectedly couldn't make it tonight. Again, she did very well. And then I'm sure you already know these 2 behind me, Paige and Adam Jacobson. This is Paige's last science fair competition because she's a senior. I want to just recognize her and her achievements because she's competed at the state level ever since 6th grade. So she's gone 7 years in a row and made it and competed well at states. They'll tell you a little bit about their project. Her brother Paige is on that same route as well, doing science fair since 6th grade. So these are 2 wonderful, astonishing scientists, and I can't wait to see what they accomplish and the future. So I'll let them tell you a little bit about their project.
So my science fair career has grown, but not my height. I'm still gonna stand in front of the podium. So I'm Paige.
And my
Jacobson,
name's Adam Jacobson.
and this year our project was called
Fantastic Bioplastic.
So we created our very own bioplastic out of household materials, so water, starches, vinegars, glycerols. And we tested the strengths of the plastics to see which one would be the strongest and which would be the most flexible plastics.
It was really cool because we made all of our own bioplastics by scratch, and they were 100% biodegradable as well. And we got to test each bioplastic by pulling on it and seeing how much we could pull on it until it would break. And we could see how strong our bioplastic is and then compare it to regular plastic as well to see if it would be a viable solution for the future. And then
Yeah, our hypothesis was supported. We hypothesized that potato starch mixed in with eggshells would be the strongest plastic, and it was. So it was really cool. We also tested sweet potato starch and tapioca starch and arrowroot starch and others, but that one ended up being the strongest.
And the reason why we thought to test eggshells and why we thought eggshells would be the strongest is it's a personal story to us. One day, our grandma heard that eggshells were good for your drain and garbage disposal. So she took a bunch of eggs and eggshells and she put them all down the drain. And that thing was clogged. And it would not move. And she had to call her uncle, who's a plumber. And he had to work on it for upwards of like half an hour to an hour straight, just trying to unclog it. So we thought, if it's strong enough to clog the drain like that, it must be able to make our eggshells stronger.
So moral of the story, use eggshells for plastic, not drain cleaning. So we took our project to regionals and we did very well. We got a gold medal, so we scored first place in the high school division. We also won a 3M Innovation Award and a chemistry award. Did you want to say that?
Sure.
The chemistry of the gold award.
Yeah, we got another certificate as well for getting first place out of the whole high school fair. We were the only ones from the whole high school division. We managed to take home first place, so that was really cool. And then we got a BSU Center for Sustainability Studies award. That was really cool. I think I'll do one. And then we got the U.S. Navy Marine Corps award, and that also came with a medal that we're showing on here tonight as well.
Yeah, so we also, being that we got first in the region, got a trophy. So we were very excited about that. And then we also, when you go to state for science fair, you get a purple ribbon. So then we took our project to state. Since we were really excited to take it to state. We won a U.S. Air Force award at state, and we also won first place in Ecolab's Food Safety Award. That was really exciting. And then we also got, what medal did we get at state?
We got a silver medal at state. That means that we were the top 10% of all the projects in the science fair. And there was only 6 people in front of us, so we managed to get top 10%, and that was really cool.
Yeah, so the way science fair is judged is each judge gives you a score, and then all these scores are tabulated. And then the top 10% of the students get a silver medal, the top 5 get a gold, and so ended up being, we were in the top 10%. There were only 6 other kids that got a higher score on their projects than us. We were really excited. This is my final, I'm a senior this year, so this was my final year. I went ever since 6th grade to state, and that's unheard of at Grand Rapids High School and unheard of in our region. Nobody has ever done it before, so I'm the first, and then you'll be the second.
I'll be the second. I've been doing it for 5 years straight, and it's always been so cool. I always kid Paige around, and I said I was in her first project too, so I think I should get bonus points for that. I was one of her test subjects her first year. So. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What an accomplishment.
Thank you.
I can't wait.
Again, thank you so much for letting them come and share their stories and their successes. I know the science fair will happen next year because on February 25th, a certain son of the principal had started his science fair project for next year. So I already have the wheels in motion and he's working on it. Do you have any questions or anything?
No questions, Lori, but thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Well done.
I kind of want to know if Paige is going into science. next year.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, I'm gonna go study biology at BSU, Bemidji State University.
Excellent.
Good for you. Good for you.
I'll still be doing it, but.
You'll be taking next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda for information only, long-term facility maintenance projects.
That is a tough act to follow. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. So before you have 3 projects that we will be working on starting in May. 2 are replacing elevators at the high school, and 1 is a seal coating of our parking lot. If a project is at a certain level, we have to bid it. None of these met that level, but we are going with vendors that we are happy with. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, Kara, appreciate the information and in the word of transparency. And I say this based on some comments I've heard and things posted on Facebook that we're not spending our money wisely here at the district. So my request is when you do these proposals, requests for proposals, and you pass them on to the board to us, can you include all the proposals that were received so that we can show the public that we are taking the lowest responsible proposal and here's the proposals, et cetera, et cetera. Just being a little more open and transparent, and especially in relation to where we're at with our budget. And maybe I'm being a little oversensitive in my requests and my comments, but it's more so of putting it out there to the public on where we're at and how we're doing it. We are taking
Yeah.
comments seriously, and we are spending our money wisely. So
Oh,
if you could in the
absolutely.
future, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, the elevators were purchased off the state bid, which are, have already been bid out, those vendors, so those are there. And with the seal coating, we sent the bid to 3 individuals that we have done business with before that that have submitted bids in the past. And so that's where we did it, and only one submitted a bid back, and so that's the one we went with.
Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the seal coating as a local company within, I don't know if they're within 318, but they're within Itasca County as well. So
Okay.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Superintendent Gross. Looks like we have 3 policies. Do you want to do them all together, or do we need to do them one at a time?
I'll kind of go over them again. You know, these are the same 3 that you saw 2 weeks ago at the first reading. Again, the first one has to do with student discipline, specifically how we handle complaints, clarifies the complaint procedure. We created a form and a little bit more clear process for parents to go through with that. Policy 606 incorporates library materials into the policy. We still have libraries. We'll still have libraries in our schools next year, even though we're making some changes there. And but incorporates library materials into the policy, kind of under the heading of curriculum materials, and defines the selection process there in 620. Add some language about that was reflective of what happened in the legislative session in 2023, specifically around credit for learning and healthcare. There's some other definitions and language changes there around concurrent enrollment. The Policy Review Committee has gone through these and recommended them for approval, and I would do the same tonight.
Do we have a motion to accept the second reading of those policies?
So moved.
Moved by David.
Second.
Second by Melissa. Discussion?
Can we name them 506, 506AR, 606, and 620?
Okay.
I meant to say that.
I would just say we might have to look for a new one next year on student discipline, just based on some of the legislature activity that's happening again, but still expect this one again next year would be my guess.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second readings of policies 506, 506AR, 606, and 620 are approved. Next item on the agenda is board reports. Note that our student board reps are unable to attend tonight. Who would like to start? Pat?
Again, only one report, that's a facilities meeting last week, and it's gearing up for phase 2 of the high school for the HVAC system. And just to repeat what I said earlier, our Rams board is going to be holding our meeting in Nashwauk on May 23rd. I'll make sure that our board members here get an invite. Rams board will be touring the Sava metallic facility, so itinerary hasn't been set, but just kind of make the mental note of May 23rd.
Thank you.
No board report from me.
Melissa and I attended the Policy Review Committee, the policies we just approved. I've been involved in several MSBA chats, particularly dealing with a lot of legislative issues. It's the season for that, and there's a lot going on right now. I did have the opportunity last Friday to attend the Student of the Month recognition at the high school, and it really was very encouraging, very fulfilling to see students being recognized for being quality students, for being great members of the community, for being supportive of their fellow students and making a difference. It was really very exciting. This happens on a monthly basis. It was very encouraging. And on April 4th, the ESP's Labor Management Committee met. That unfortunately is, we had a meeting in December and it has been postponed and kicked back a couple of times. We will have one more meeting in early May this year of the ESP Labor Management Committee to deal with issues. It was a very, very good meeting. A lot of issues got on the table and got aired.
Just the facilities meeting. Melissa?
Yeah, ESP policy, and then, and I don't remember if we said this or not, but 6 girls signed, they committed to play athletics. I'm gonna say, one of them was my daughter, so that's how I knew, but she wasn't the only one. There were 6, and they're all headed to University of Wisconsin school. And then, and when I talked to our athletic director, Dale Christie, I said, that's really cool that you got all the girls together. And he said, actually, our earlier signing this year in the fall was all girls too. There have been no boys yet that have signed. And what I think is really cool about that is if you look at all the research on leadership and women excelling, as most of them have been in activities in athletics. So just hats off to all those girls who are.
So I had a question.
Yeah.
Ms. Marler, was there a conspiracy with the other parents so carpooling is in place? All 6 of us?
I know, you think they'd be closer. And I thought Wisconsin must have something on the market because they're drawing, really 12 really talented, both athletics and all of these are really good students out of the state of Minnesota.
The only thing I have to report, I attended the FFA Region 2 awards banquet and meeting today. It's held at Cohasset Community Center, which is really a nice venue for things like that. It's, because they're a nonprofit, there's no charge to use that facility. So it sure is impressive to see that professional group of kids. Next item on the agenda is Superintendent's Report. Superintendent Gross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple things, like Mr. Marty mentioned and others, a lot going on at the state level right now with legislation, some bills specifically relevant to us. Senator Farnsworth and Eichhorn both kind of move forward a bill that would help us with some funding if our mascot ends up needing to change. So appreciate them advocating for our school district. Had the opportunity last week to testify on a bill brought forward by Senator Gustafson that would add some money under the formula. And I don't know that bill will get a lot of traction. Seems like the purse strings are going to be held pretty tight, but I still think it's important that we're talking about funding down there and bringing forward the true narrative that we went 20 years with underfunding, and it's difficult, regardless of what happened last session, to make that up in just one year. So still a lot of work to do and ground to regain there. The seasonal rec bill that we've been watching and paying attention to goes to the Senate tomorrow, I believe, and so that's a big deal. And we would still obviously need to bring that election to the voters, which is an important part of the process, but it would decrease the cost for our voters by 20%. And so anything that I think helps level the playing field for our community and for our students and their opportunities is good. Let's see, other than the things we talked about tonight, just really appreciate the work that our principals have been doing, like what Mr. Goodwin and Leonard talked about, and they're leading through a lot as we get down to showtime here a little bit with our MCAs. We certainly don't sum up a child on how they do on one particular day, but it is an important day. It's an important assessment. It's a good way to communicate and measure how we're doing and then adjust our curriculum and approaches to that. And so it's an important day. It's an important time of the year. And I appreciate the work our teachers have put in to get kids ready for it. One of the things we've been doing as a district in the last few weeks is to try to get really more consistent about how we're approaching these assessments, because we really feel like it's our obligation, and the kids deserve, parents deserve, we deserve to have the most accurate data that reflects what kids know and can do. And it shouldn't be dependent on the setting they're in or some logistical change. It should be just about what kids know. So a lot of work went into that. That's in alignment with our strategic direction of equitable outcomes and having really good data. You heard the principals talked about the goals that we set, and we're pressing forward and hopeful that we can make those happen. So a lot of good happening. You heard great stories of academic achievement tonight. Melissa talked about things we're doing out of the classroom as well. Chair Schroeder talked about excellent regional leadership and FFA. A lot of good things happening in ISD 318.
Thank you. Reminder that upcoming school board committee and meeting dates are posted on each agenda. School board meeting agendas can be found on the district website and on the designated posting site at the ISD 318 Educational Services Center. Is there any other business to come before the board? Julie, I have 2 names for public input.
That's correct.
Suzie, you're first. While you come up, I'm going to read a statement about our policy. The ISD 318 school board shall provide a specific period of time where persons may address the school board on any topic subject to limitations of policy 206. All individual comments shall be less than 5 minutes. Any group of 5 or more persons must appoint 1 person to present the group's views to the board. Depending on the number of persons present, the school board chair reserves the right to set further time limits to allow participation within the allocated time. The board shall not allow negative comments in public session about individual employees or students. Specific factual information or recitation of existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries, but the board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any issue that's not included on the agenda posted with the notice of the meeting. If there are more requests than time available, priority would be given to persons who reside within Grand Rapids Big Fork School District. Go ahead, Sue.
Good evening, Superintendent Gross and fellow school board members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight on a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that involves our teaching staff and a few other little extras thrown in. I no longer have an inside view of what decision-making has been. I know you've been going through some really hard things, but I've been closely following what's been going on, and it's hard to believe how much things have changed. When I was first elected to the board, I served about 19 years, but the first time was about 30 years ago. Ben, you might remember that. And so much has changed since then. At that time, we had a lot of activities, positions, courses no longer available. Believe it or not, at one time, we actually had a director of media with full-time librarians over the elementary, middle, and high school, as well as staff that was supporting the libraries. We've eliminated a lot of space for special education, and today, and I have to put this in, I hear many individuals wishing we still had VAX classes, and you should have expected that to come out of my mouth tonight. I'm also hearing concern about electives that have been trimmed or reduced in number, and state funding continues. That's just an ongoing problem with all the mandates that they force us on. When I was in high school, I attended a high school in Milwaukee that was very similar in numbers to Grand Rapids High School. Granted, there were many opportunities for women to go into different occupations like today. But in a high school of 1,200, there were 82 of us in the Future Teachers of America group. That was just like a prize. That was something that was so exciting to go into that occupation. I'm now seeing that the numbers going into teaching are declining, and teachers are wishing they could retire sooner rather than later. This isn't all teachers, but it is becoming more prevalent. And my husband and I, we have a granddaughter who teaches in another district, about an hour away from here. She's in her 3rd year of teaching. She's awesome, creative, loves it. But I also wonder if she's going to be able to retire because of the pressures that are put upon her. Teachers should be coming to work excited about making a difference for students. And I think for the most part, our teachers are doing that. But they're faced with more behavioral issues and greater class sizes. The morale is sinking among staff dealing with cuts and changes. I personally know of longtime substitutes who will not go into various classes in our district because of discipline issues, and some have quit an assignment due to behavior of some of these students. Many of our students are not the students that your children went to school with, but the majority of them are good, great kids like the Jacobson kids we just saw tonight. But I do believe there's a need for respect for educators and also for strong, strong parental support, because I think that's something that's totally lacking. When our schools were designed, we had a lot of discussion about how they would be set up. We made sure there were distinct class areas for each grade. Now that's changed, and the faculties that have worked together well, they're gonna be split up. You know, I don't know what the outcome is gonna be. I also know that was a budget decision. But it's becoming a strain for some parents who are kind of wondering, you know, how am I gonna get my kids from east to west and so on and get in time for work? I've heard comments about, you know, what's gonna be the future? We're really concerned. Today I attended a meeting of the Retired Educators Association in Minnesota, and I can guarantee that the membership is very, very concerned about the future of teachers. And they're really, you know, wanting to support and know that our teachers are really supported by our retired educated staff. I don't have any solutions. I have no crystal ball, but I'd love to see the board and administration brainstorm to see how morale can be boosted for staff. I believe our legislators need to be very serious about fighting hard to get funding our district needs. Our community does value education, they truly do. I voted for the referendum, but I also know that if I was single, and I voted yes, but if it had passed, I would have lost 1 month of my Social Security. And for many of our seniors, that's huge, you know, with meds and everything else that's going up, not to mention paying $6 for a jar of mayonnaise. So, you know, these are increasing costs on our seniors. I've also heard from a number of retirees who would love to help out as volunteers in the school. I don't know how that would be done. I talked to Melissa beforehand, and I know there are constraints. But what are ways that, what are solid commitments the staff could rely on and to ease teachers with volunteers? And could a survey be done to say, this is how I could use help? Just listening to Lori talk tonight about, you know, not being able to send all these kids to a state competition, that saddens my heart. Are there people that would say, hey, I'll support one kid going down there, you know, so teachers don't have to be caught up in grant writing, and that's a tedious process. I know I did that for 3 years. Like I said, I have no easy solutions. It's growing. I recognize the work that all of you are doing and the hard decisions that you make. I know that all of you are my daily prayers. You are appreciated for the work that you do. And I hope that our district can once again regain, so implement more of our classes, and find all of our staff eager and excited to step in schools each day. We have a great district. Keep up the good work, and thank you for your time.
Tim Quist.
I'm gonna try not to get upset this time. It was hard last time after listening to all those kids beg for their favorite thing to not be taken from them. It was quite upsetting to me, being somebody who needed his favorite thing to make it to adulthood. As a parent in this community with 3 special needs students, 4 students total, I'm feeling like I'm in an abusive relationship with the school district. That started several years ago. Our daughter came home, the side of her face was all swollen. I was in cities at a doctor's appointment. I've got some long-term health issues going on. Mom and dad got her off the bus. She can't speak, she's nonverbal, so she can't tell us what happened. And they thought it best not to tell me until I got home, so I can respect that. Probably the right decision. But when I reached out to the school to find out what happened, the principal at West never called me back. The teacher at West never called me back. The secretary at West never called me back. Gross didn't respond until I hired an attorney to help me compose a strongly worded email. So there's some trust issues on my side of this. And now, you know, you came, you asked for more money. a majority of families in this community cannot afford to give you more money. And it feels petty and retaliatory to attempt to take away tennis, and then to go back on your promise of, hey, build these 2 buildings and we won't do a grade level split. That was promised when those were built. That's a promise you failed to keep. For a guy with 4 kids, obviously in many different grade levels, it's very complicated for me to figure out, okay, there's a 45-minute window, less than 45, 40-minute window from when you're allowed to drop your kid off to when you must have dropped your kid off. 7:45, 8:25. Can't go before, can't go after. And you gotta wait in line, or you gotta park, walk your kid in, walk back to your car. You get the idea. It's a time-consuming process. Not hard, but it's time-consuming. So that being said, you kind of get what I'm getting at there. I understand you're having trouble financially. I have questions about why that is. Were we not as disciplined as we should have been? Were we more extravagant than we should have been? But it keeps coming back to families are expected to pick up the slack rather than creative problem solving. And maybe you just used up all the creative problem solving and there's just no other option left. I haven't been paying attention. Like I said, I've got a busy life, but now it's starting to affect me and it's affecting my kids. So now I want better transparency. I appreciated that. And clarification on what's going on. Also, understanding that most of our community is poor. I don't know if this is legal. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You could probably answer this for me. But instead of increasing property taxes, why not ask for a sales tax? So all the rich folks that come up to clutter up our streets every summer and make driving an absolute nightmare could contribute to our needs here in this district. Because if you'd have said, hey, 2.5% sales tax, and we can scoop up some dollars from all the rich folks down in the cities to help us out, being they won't listen to us in the state assembly, hey, I'll vote for that. I can make that work. But when you raise property taxes, low-income families, single retirees, that's a no-go. And it traps people in the community because now with interest rates as high as they are, you raise my tax burden, I can't sell my home to somebody in the income bracket that would be looking to buy my home because they can't make the payment when you combine that interest rate with that increased tax burden. So you trap families that can no longer afford to live here, you trap them and they can't even leave to go somewhere cheaper.
Give me about 1 minute.
Yep. Things to think about. I don't know your life stories. Maybe it's easy, maybe it's challenging. Mine, challenging. Okay? I can't just wake up every day and take another shot. And that's my position, that's the position of many parents that I'm hearing from. I feel like you guys, Mr. Gross, just keep taking a shot at us instead of finding a different creative solution. Food for thought. If you want creative ideas, I'm a creative guy, I can come up with creative ideas. I would encourage you to reach out to families, ask for more input. It might be hard to listen to us tell you how to do your job. It might be demeaning, might be injuring to your pride, especially if it's me doing the talking. But you'll have much happier constituents, and I'd be willing to bet much more success in solving your problems.
this point, there's no further agenda items. Board meetings adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.